Alright, calm. So I'm gonna explain law of assumption from an internal aspect, what it is, and how to do it essentially. So the law of assumption is to assume that what you internally visualize and feel emotionally has already taken place. So essentially, because it's already because you live in the moment where it's already taken place, it therefore has. You just have to shift to that version of yourself internally. So that's how the law of assumption works. It is you assuming that something you visualized happening and felt it emotionally has already taken place. You're assuming it's already taken place, and it has once you shift to that version of yourself where it's taken place. So it's not that you can't be that version, it's that you haven't shifted internally to aligning with that version of yourself, basically. Because once you operate from that version of yourself, essentially it's already taken place because you are now. Because you are now that version of yourself. So if you're not, or if you try to operate as the version of you still now, the old version of you, essentially you can't change the effect by an effect. So you can't still be the old version of yourself and try to get new results. It won't work. So you have to shift internally to the frequency of it, the awareness of it. From an internal aspect, self-validate yourself. So assume internally that it's already taken place. Feel it as if it's already taken place. Be congratulated, or congratulate yourself as if it's already taken place. Visualize everything around you as if it's already taken place. But know from an internal aspect that you can assume it has, and because you assume it has, it therefore has. Because whatever you say is right, and whatever you say is wrong, is wrong. It's just all your interpretation or your perception of it, essentially. Unless there's facts to actually prove what someone's saying or assuming, then that's different. But if it's just opinion based, you're purely right if you assume you're right. You're purely wrong if you assume you're wrong. There's essentially no one really. When you get to the end result of it, no one really. It's just points. It's just he says, she says. So by assuming that it's already taken place and shifting to that version of yourself internally, because you then self-validate yourself and assume now that you are that version of yourself, through that certainty and detachment from it, knowing that you're already that version of yourself that you visualized and emotional intensity felt, because you experienced it and you saw it, you then shift that version from an internal aspect by self-validating yourself. And because you self-validate yourself, reality therefore has to catch up with you rather than you trying to change things that you're looking at externally. Because people think that doing more work changes different results, but it only changes if a particular version of you is doing the work now, because you've shifted the cause. So because there's a new cause, there's a new version of you, there's a new frequency of you, there's a new tuning of you on like a radio station, because you're now in tune with that particular event taking place. Because it's a new cause now, there will be new results. And that's what manifestation is shifting internally. So because the new version of you that's self-validated and has a new self-worth, a new perception, a new set of beliefs, new focus, new habits, where you put your concentration is very key, because concentration is like alignment. So whatever you focus on, that's where you're putting your energy. So everything you're then doing, you then can understand it either benefits to that version of you or doesn't. And then because you consciously operate from that version of yourself where you live in essentially the law of liberty, or you don't have a set of limited beliefs, you can assume it's already taken place without knowing how, but knowing that all paths you go lead to it. And because you then operate from that aspect with detachment and certainty that it's already taken place, like I said, by assuming, by assumption, it then has, because that is what the law of assumption is to assume it's already taken place and then live in the end result of it. So you're living, once you assume essentially it's taken place from an internal aspect, by validating yourself that it has taken place, you then can live in the end result of it. So you self-validate yourself and assume it's already taken place, living in the end result of it. And because you're now essentially assuming you're in the end result of it, the visualization that you intensely felt has therefore already taken place. So because it's already taken place, you now already are that version of yourself. Whereas a mistake someone would make is see that version of themselves but think it's an external aspect and see it away from them, which is the wrong concept, because there's duality in everything. So in reality, the hands are separate like this, but in all other realms, all is one. So because all is one, everything is in sync with each other. Everything's vibrating constantly. So you just have to shift to that version of you where you're aligning with that, which is just shifting the tuning of yourself essentially. So because you then assume it's already taken place and live in the end result of it, it therefore has taken place because you're in the end result of it. And because you detach from it and then do what you're doing, because faith without works is dead, so you still do what you're doing, but you're just doing it from that version of yourself. Essentially, it's then already taken place because we're now living in the end result of our assumption. So because we're living in the end result of our assumption, therefore, we can assume if the assumption is true. Because whatever we tell the brain, it can't separate the truth from a lie. So as long as you can convince yourself by setting a new self-worth, a new perception of yourself, a new set of beliefs of yourself, a new focus, new habits, it could be where you put your concentration, new goals, because you shift to that version of yourself internally, you therefore align with that, let's say, successful version of yourself, because you're now in alignment with that version of yourself. But you internally validate yourself and operate from an internal aspect. So then when it does show up in reality, you will already be used to it because you already validated yourself before the world did. So because you already validated yourself internally, when it does then show up in reality, it's like reality's catching up with you because you already knew you was going to be that before it happened. Because you live in the end result of it by validating yourself, it's already happened. It therefore has. So that's why when it does happen in reality, it'll be no surprise to you because you already validated yourself before it happened by living in the end result of it already taking place. So that is the law of assumption explained, and how to essentially use it in a sense of manifestation or just from an internal aspect. That is the law of assumption. So yeah.